Hi, I'm
Hi.
going to share my screen. Greetings. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say hi. Like
Hi.
I've escaped the lockdown to our summer house, something that many Finns have done recently. And unfortunately, the connection seems to be rather sort of sketchy. So I'm not going to keep the video going.
Right.
When I speak, but I just wanted to say
Great
hi.
to see you. Yeah, hi.
Thank you so much for organizing the conference. It's been lovely so far.
Thank you.
All right, I'm trying to share my screen now.
Yeah, all good. We can see it.
Fantastic. Okay. Year 2020 will stay in history as a year of crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has swept the world and shaken our lives. Borders have been closed, moving outside one's house has been restricted, and physical contact with people has been urged to be avoided. This year, we have started working, going to school, and meeting friends in online environments. The benefits of media technologies have been emphasized, and we have started to look for answers from them, also in terms of overcoming the pandemic. The crisis has changed the world in an unforeseen way, and perhaps for good. Maybe this will be the new normal, or maybe it is already the new normal. The crisis has also brought forth an accelerated progression that has already been brewing underneath for a much longer time. In my presentation, I will talk about my current research project in which is part of a consortium, Intimacy in Data-Driven Culture, EDA, funded by the Strategic Research Council at the Academy of Finland. As part of the consortium, I lead the project Privacy, Work and Design, which investigates through a series of case studies. One case study will be also talked about later today by Natalia Särmäkari, who is part of my project, which investigates through a series of case studies the effects of digitalization to technology-driven occupations, such as fashion and game designers, and Natalia will obviously talk about fashion designers, design objects, smart clothes, wearable technology and games, and consumers, algorithmic consumer culture more specifically. Today, I will especially focus on the case study of dissemination channels and the personification of them through the figure of the fashion influencer. I'm particularly interested in the fashion influencer as a digital worker. Research has defined the influencer in many ways. It has been defined as an Insta-famous micro-celebrity, which refers to a person located on social media, especially in the photography-based social media platform Instagram, someone with good looks, social capital, and a large social media following. Influencer has the power, obviously, to influence. They affect the opinions and behaviors of their followers. Influencers are usually defined as millennials, mostly as women in their 20s and 30s, and they have good access to the fashion industry, which means that they mainly work in the so-called fashion capitals. They're also seen as the disruptors of the fashion system. They have shaken the traditional, closed and exclusive fashion system by making it accessible to every consumer via the platforms. In my case study, I'm interested in investigating fashion influencing as a job title and maybe also as a career path, as work that is organized through the digital devices and social media applications. I defined it as work which is enabled by digitalization, mediatization, and platformization, referring to the role of platforms as the dominant infrastructural and economic models of contemporary fashion, and what and how can be communicated in the first place. The fashion influencer is a figure dependent on the platforms, and their work as fashion influencers is defined through the blurring boundary between the private and the public self. The work of the influencer is largely based on using intimacy as a resource, which means sharing personal information to increase attention and to improve the influencer's online status. In this slide, you can see two boxes. The first defines the parameters of my case study on the Finnish fashion and lifestyle influencers as digital workers. I started this project last autumn when we received the funding, so prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, just before that. I conducted, in collaboration with the PR and marketing agency Milton Studios, focus group interviews. So I was interviewing and Milton Studios acquired the influencers for me, so we collaborated like that. The aim of these was to, the focus group interviews was to investigate the nature of the work, intimacy as a research of the work, and the blurring boundaries of work and leisure. Thus far, I've conducted 3 focus group interviews in November 2019 and 2 at the beginning of this year, just before the COVID-19 pandemic started. In total, I've interviewed 15 influencers who are all from the greater area of Helsinki, so southern part of the country. All of the influencers are rather well known in Finland. Their followers range from 5,000, so that some of them are micro influencers, but then I have interviewed influencers with up to 100,000 followers, which in a country like Finland is quite a lot. They are millennials. 10 of my interviewees have been or are women, 5 identify as men, and ethnically they are mostly white, but there are also 2 black, 1 Asian, and 1 self-identified brown influencer. In terms of sexuality, there is 1 openly gay influencer. I say all this because these intimate identity traits, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, are important building blocks of the influencer's brand. They also affect the followers and the cooperation partners and the feedback that they receive online. I don't have the time to go to this today, but the intimate identity traits also make the influencers quite vulnerable or vulnerable in very different ways. So that's a very interesting feature that I'm going to dig deeper into in my project. All the influencers that I've interviewed are rather well educated. 10 of them has a BA degree, 5 are high school graduates. They mostly work as self-employed entrepreneurs. Some have started as bloggers, and one of them is maybe one of the first blogger in Finland. Some combine influencing with other work, so they do it on the side. One of them, for example, works also as a stylist for the Finnish fashion company Marimekko, and another one is a journalist in the national broadcasting company Yle. Their average income circles around 40,000 euros annually, but some earn a little bit less, and then some earn much, much more, 3 times more, even more. And the income comes mainly from business or cooperation. So they get paid for their work. And well, they also get other kinds of compensation, but they are paid for the work that they do for the brands. The main platforms that they use are Instagram and YouTube. However, it seems that TikTok is also becoming increasingly important. So there's a shift all the time in terms of technologies here. Also a very interesting feature, I think. The second box on the slide is specifically relevant for today. When the COVID-19 pandemic started, I decided to run COVID-19 interview rounds and have thus far done 2 in May. The aim of these interviews was to investigate the effects of the pandemic to the work of the influencer. The questions were discussed that we have been discussing were rather simple and straightforward. How has the pandemic affected their work and its content? Have they lost their work or gained new work or new duties? Or cooperation partners, and then we've also talked about the future and what that might look like. Right, the discussions have been enlightening to me, but also to the influencers. I've made 2 boxes here that indicate some results. The first are labeled mixed feelings, referring to the influencers' own understanding of their work as precarious. The line "they tossed us first" is from many of the influencers who shared the experience of losing all or most of their income and cooperation partners or planned projects. Another interesting finding related to the previous one relates also to money. The line "why don't they pay us when people spend more time in the social media than ever before" refers to a shared experience of unimportance to cooperation partners who have now, during the pandemic, either asked the influencers to do their work with less pay or even as pro bono. It has made the influencers feel that their work is not valued. Despite they are asked to work and they work hard, their work is still not recognized as work or respected as such. And then the second box records some more positive thoughts about the pandemic as a time of growth and development. They become more there's a more heightened sense of responsibility, what to post for the followers, and maybe a more critical take on the contents and what kind of things they actually want to influence on. And then there is another thing related to education, to educate the cooperation partners, encapsulated in the line "this work will not go extinct," which refers to a sense of needing to educate the cooperation partners about the nuances of the work of the influencer. And lastly, the line "we should get organized" refers to a discussion of 5 influencers on imagining a future of founding a collective or even a union of content producers to prevent their cooperation partners from dumping their prices. If respect is not given, it must be taken, it seems. I started my presentation by saying that the COVID-19 pandemic has shaken the world, maybe for good. Maybe the new normal is here. In light of my case study of the work of the Finnish fashion influencers, the fashion system is also shaking from this perspective. If the fashion influencers who have the power to affect the opinions and behaviors of their followers decide to get organized, as my interviews said that they would, and to evaluate the contents of their work and what they wish to influence, then who knows, a big social disruption within the ongoing digital disruption of fashion may well be here sooner than we might think. Thank you.
Thank you, Annamari. We have a question from Lainey Burton. Annamari, can you comment on fashion influencers' significant unpaid labor as digital workers, until which point they become discovered or have the right amount of follows to gain endorsements by companies? Do you think this is a form of exploitation by the fashion industry?
Sorry, can you repeat it? I lost part of it.
Can you comment on fashion influencers' significant unpaid labor as digital workers, until which point they become discovered or have the right amount of follows to gain endorsement by companies? Do you think this is a form of exploitation by the fashion industry?
I don't see it as a form of exploitation based on the interviews that I've done. At least all of my influencers, they've been sort of discovered by many parties. They may have started their sort of work as a hobby, but if then all of these influencers that I've interviewed, they actually work with companies, and they also work with communication agencies who are sort of the nodes in this chain of communication. And actually those agencies are an important sort of party that I will further later on also be investigating more. So I don't necessarily think that they are exploited, although then the pandemic has certainly shown another phase. So in good times, it seems the companies are willing to pay maybe, but then now when the pandemic has hit, they seem to be reluctant to pay, and they've lost many have lost part or all of their work, not the ongoing project that they are doing maybe, but future work. They've been either cancelled or postponed. So in a way, they don't have a very strong position, and maybe this is why some of the influencers were of the opinion that they should organize in some ways to have a stronger position and not be sort of then played by the companies, for example.
Thank you. Irina Sirotkina, how do Instagram fashion influencers contribute in redefining intimacy? You mentioned the boundaries between private and public. Are Instagram fashion influencers in this way different from other celebrities?
Well, I think it depends on the celebrity, I guess, but the work of the influencers mainly is about sharing very personal details about their private lives and using products in their daily lives and sharing that with their followers. And obviously that is somehow much more, goes much deeper into the privacy of one's life than other celebrities. I'm not sure what kind of celebrities you mean by this, but I mean, then if they are celebrities who have built their fame around sharing intimate details about their lives, then maybe it's not that different. But if, I'm not sure, so you should maybe specify a little bit. Maybe it is a more broader phenomenon that is happening here at the moment, and the influencer is one example, one quite visible example of it.